Hi, good morning, everyone. We will be starting the webinar shortly, probably in the next 2 to 3 minutes. We'll just wait for more people to come in. Yeah, thank you. Hey, good morning, everyone. Gerald, you can come online. We have got a good number online now. Right. Okay. So, a very good morning to everyone. Thank you for joining our webinar this morning. We have with us here today Dr. Pan Jia Wern. He heads the Genomics and Bioinformatics team at Cancer Research Malaysia. He's focused on studying the genes of Asian breast cancer patients, since most of global research doesn't reflect our population. His team found unique traits in Asian cancers, which could open doors for better treatment like immunotherapy. This work has already led to clinical trials here in Malaysia. He's also been recognized internationally for these contributions. Hi, Dr. Jia Wern. Thank you for joining us today.
Hi, thank you for having me. Very nice to be here.
Yes. So, just a minute. Okay. So, Dr. Jawan, my first question to you. Your work involves bioinformatics and genomics. It's considered like a dry lab. For those of us who are not scientists, can you explain in simple terms what these fields are about?
Sure, yeah, that's a great question. So basically what I do is I study the DNA of cancer, and I try to figure out how the DNA of cancer is different from normal DNA. And so this is what we call cancer genomics, right? And a genome is basically just all of the DNA inside a single cell, all of your genes put together. And because DNA is this really, really complex molecule, right? So our DNA is about 3 billion characters long in each of our cells. So my team uses very powerful computers in order to process all of that data. And that's what we call bioinformatics, right? So bioinformatics uses computers to analyze biological information such as DNA. And this could also be image data or health-related data or data from other types of experiments. But using computers to process biological data is what we call bioinformatics.
Okay. So it's basically you use computers, you use data, you crunch the data, and you try to find insights that you can get from the data.
That's
So,
right.
Dr. Jawad, what drew you into using bioinformatics and genomics in cancer research?
Right. So, about roughly the time that I started my PhD, there were new techniques that had developed in genomics, and especially a big one that some of you might have heard about is called next generation sequencing. And this is a technology that allows scientists to read DNA extremely quickly, much, much faster than before. And this was very exciting because we were suddenly as scientists able to access a whole bunch of data, and scientists really love data. And so this was really what drew me to the field. And additionally, also working with computers does means that you get, instant feedback. When something works on the computer, it works straight away. You can see the results immediately. And this is quite is perhaps a bit less frustrating to me than the regular wet lab techniques, where sometimes it can take you quite a long time, days, hours, maybe even months to get results. And so that's kind of what drew me to bioinformatics and genomics.
Interesting, interesting. How does studying the genes of Malaysians and Asians help us understand cancer better compared to using data mainly from the Western countries? Are there differences between us?
Yeah, definitely. There are a lot of differences between us and Western populations. And so if we use data just from Western countries, we would probably get results that are not 100% applicable to cancer patients that are here, right? So for example, we have lots of differences in our genetics, we have lots of differences in our environment, our lifestyles are very different. So to elaborate a little bit more, we have different ancestries, which means that our genes inherited from our parents are different enough from other parents, sorry, other populations, sorry, from people in other countries. And this all affects cancer in small but important ways, right? And we also live in a tropical environment, in a tropical country, so we're exposed to different kinds of diseases that relates to the environment. And our cultural context is also very different. And for an example that's relevant to my own research, um, it comes down, for example, when a simple example is how many children we have, right? So in Asian women, just a very few generations ago, maybe 30, 40, 50 years ago, they used to have 8 or 10 children. But over the span of, just a few generations, this has come down to only 1 or 2 children per woman. And this is a very drastic change within a short period of time that you don't really see anywhere else. That's one example of a big important difference. And there are other things also, of course, like our diets are also very different. And so using specifically Malaysian data, this allows us to better optimize cancer treatments and cancer prevention strategies for our local population.
Okay, interesting, interesting. We understand there are difference in height, the color, our eye color, they all can differentiate us, right? And it's interesting to see now that how treatments also work differently, as compared to the Asian population and the Western population, and how
That's right.
work in bioinformatics will help us understand this in a deeper because we are looking at data and so on. So, Dr. Jawan, can you share an example of how bioinformatics or genomics has helped uncover something important about cancer in our local population?
Sure. So let me actually give two examples. I think they're both quite interesting. I won't spend too much time on them. Hopefully, you can go a bit quite fast on each of them. But one of the big things that we discovered recently, more more recently, my team specifically studies the genomes of Asian breast cancer. And so we have looked over the past couple of years at breast tumors from almost 1,000 women. And what we found was that breast tumors from Asian women have a more active immune microenvironment. And this simply means that the immune system in Asian women is more active in response to cancer compared to women from other populations. And this means that immunotherapy may be more effective in Asian women because they have a more active immune response to breast cancer. And we have used this information to start clinical trials in the clinic so that Asian patients can benefit more from immunotherapy. So that's one example. A second example that might be interesting to some people is that we have also recently found a link between the cancer immune system and also how many kids a woman has had, as well as whether or not she breastfed, right? So basically, we have known for many years that when a woman has kids and they start breastfeeding, her risk for breast cancer goes up in the short term, but then it goes down over the long term. And so what goes down over the long term? What gives this protection? And we found in our data that this protection may actually be conveyed by very special immune cells that are present and accumulate in the breast of Asian women when they breastfeed. And this special immune cells seem to stick around for a long time afterwards and convey this special protective effect against women from getting breast cancer.
Interesting. So breastfeeding, you said Asian women have more active.
So Asian women have more active immune systems, and our breastfeeding rates are actually lower than a lot of other populations. So depending on the specific ethnic group that you look at, but it's quite complex. So, but there are specific things in Asian women regarding to breastfeeding, parity, and also their immune systems that make us different from other populations.
Interesting. And you are saying that you will encourage more women to breastfeed as it decreases your risk to breast cancer?
I think that's a general recommendation that's common. But I mean, we don't want to place extra pressures on women. They have plenty of pressures already. But what we want to say is that breastfeeding, yes, it does have a protective effect on against breast cancer. And so if you do that, you do have this benefit. But of course, the recommendations to specific women, that depends on your ability and
yes, correct. I guess the quality of life matters more as well, right?
Yeah.
Interesting. So for the public, why should we care about DNA, genes, or bioinformatics? How does it eventually affect patients and family? Because if you look at bioinformatics, you look at DNA, genes, they are more concerned in the research side of it. Patients, they are more concerned of treatment, how much treatment costs. It's always an added burden for them to think about all this. And why is it important for them to think about DNA, genes, bioinformatics?
Yeah. So these are all important because if you look in the trends in healthcare and medicine, so many of the best and the latest treatment options, they rely on something called precision medicine.
Yeah.
Right. So precision medicine or personalized medicine is an important concept that I want to introduce now. And it just refers to the idea that everybody's a little bit different. So everybody should receive treatment that is specifically tailored for them, based on their own specific genes, their own specific DNA, their own specific environment and lifestyle. And so precision medicine relies on having a very good understanding of our own genes and DNA, and it uses bioinformatics very extensively. And so we need to keep using genomics and bioinformatics to study our own population if we want to keep up with the latest advances in medicine, specifically this personalized and precision medicine. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think precision medicine, would you call something like targeted therapy a precision medicine?
That's right. Yeah. So targeted therapy that specifically targets one vulnerability in your cancer's genome. Yeah, that's a good example of personalized medicine.
Yeah, I guess we are now moving from a cookie cutter generation to something that is more personalized to a person or personalized to a group of patients or a population, because we want something to work effectively for them, not just work, but work effectively, something that, doesn't affect their quality of life. Treatment works for them and survival also increases. Okay, how do you see genomics shaping the future of cancer research in Malaysia or cancer care in Malaysia?
Yeah, so genomics to me is primarily a discovery tool, which means that researchers use it as a tool to understand, every aspect of cancer better, and this facilitates its discovery of new and better treatments, right? So in a sense, genomics is a tool like a lot of other research tools. So think of it as just how essential experiments in test tubes are today. In the same way, genomics are also an essential tool for researchers to use to kind of like discover new treatment options. But in terms of patient care, if you're talking about patient care more specifically, genomics is also getting a lot cheaper and it's getting more and more integrated into patient care, especially cancer patient care each year. And this is an essential part of personalized medicine, right? And so if you go to many private hospitals today, genomics is already a very common and routine part of diagnostics. And as they get cheaper and cheaper, this will continue to become more and more common, more and more accessible, more and more widespread.
When they speak about cancer markers, has that does that have any link to genomics?
Yeah, so the you use genomics to discover new cancer markers and also to validate how old cancer markers work in our own local population. So there is quite a lot of tie into genomics as well. Yeah.
So the science there is getting stronger, I trust.
Oh, every day. Yeah, yeah. It's getting stronger every day. And that might go in both directions, right? We're learning new markers, but also sometimes discovering that maybe old markers are not as good as we think they should be. So it works both ways. Yeah.
Ah, interesting, interesting. Because nowadays, people always ask, when you go for diagnostic tests, like you mentioned, they have the basic ones that looks at your liver enzyme, that looks at your thyroids and everything. And then they also have like add-on, you can
That's
add
right.
this marker, cancer marker. So it's interesting that now people will understand it has the genomics is the one that will discover all these cancer markers that
Yeah.
people get to test for.
And not just discover, but also optimize them for our local populations. Yeah.
Oh, interesting, interesting. So, maybe Dr. Jawad, you could share some of your work that has already gone into clinical trials. Maybe just one or two.
Sure. So, like I talked about, the immunotherapy kind of research that we've been doing, right? So we found like from breast tumors from Asian women, they have a more active tumor microenvironment. So we initiated a clinical trial for this based on a specific germline variant that's common in Asian women that we think affects their ability to respond to immunotherapy. And this is what we call the AURA clinical trial, right? And so this is a clinical trial to test a specific type of immunotherapy in Asian women that have a specific genetic variant, so a specific kind of DNA that we think allows them to respond better to immunotherapy. And we have just finished that study. We've just published it, and it came out quite recently, just a month ago.
Interesting, interesting. So the study is complete.
That's right. Yeah, the first phase of the study is complete.
And how is the results?
Yeah.
What?
And what we show that women who have that genetic variant, they respond to treatment about double, so 2 times the effectiveness compared to previous studies. And the survival rate, sorry, the length of survival for these women was about 50% longer than previous studies.
Oh,
So it
wow.
was quite successful.
So before you went to doing this into clinical trials, you looked at data, and it was from the data that you found that this would work, and it's after that you went into clinical trials to test out like a hypothesis that you were testing out. Am I correct?
Exactly right. Yeah, we use genomics data to kind of formulate and validate this hypothesis, which we then bring into clinical trials to validate and further confirm using actual
Oh,
medicine in the clinic.
interesting. So, people hearing here are now able to see the link about why genomics is important, bioinformatics is important. It's just not about doing research. Your work, especially in the oral study, you saw what the data is showing. You came up with the hypothesis, and then we tested it in clinical trials, and the results have been amazing. 50%. That's really good results, actually. So congrats to your team and to you.
Thank you. Yeah.
Okay. Dr. Javin, do you think one day we'll be able to personalize cancer treatment for every patient based on their gene?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. And I do think that eventually one day we will get there. But I don't think it will happen for quite a long time. It will take probably many more years before we have individualized medicine, right? But in the meantime, I think personalized medicine will get more and more special and specialized, and it would be more and more, it will expand to greater and greater categories, right? So an analogy that I like to use of it is, think of it like almost like a clothing store, right? So if you think about a clothing store, maybe, I don't know, 50 years ago, maybe you only had three different brands, right? Maybe you have
Correct.
only Nike, Adidas, and Gap or something like that. I mean, of course, I'm exaggerating here, but you get the idea. So everyone who went to the store, you have to pick between three different options, so you had very limited choices. But over time, as the technology improves, as there are more and more brands that come into the store, so eventually today, now everybody can look unique, right? So
Correct.
in the
Correct.
same way, I think that's how personalized medicine will kind of like evolve over time. We'll get more and more options until eventually someday every treatment, every patient will get a very unique set of treatment options. Yeah.
Correct. I like to use the same analogy when I go out there and give my public talks. I said, you take 20 years ago, you walk into a makeup store, a woman only
Yeah.
has three options when it comes to their foundation.
Yeah.
But today there are 50, 60 colors, something that could match. You could be in between two colors and, giving them more option,
Yeah.
something that is more personalized to them. And I think this is very, very important because, like I said, you want something to work effectively for patients as well.
Yeah, exactly right.
Okay, so my last question to you, Dr. Jia Wern, why do you think it's important for Malaysians to contribute to cancer research?
Yeah. So I think research as a whole, it functions best when there is a very broad collective support from the community, right? So cancer affects every one of us, right? Even if it doesn't affect us individually, it will affect definitely our friends and our family. So if we as Malaysians, we don't work to make things better for our own population, there's no one else who will do it for us, right? So no one else will do it, so we have to do it ourselves. So that means that whether it's participating in our research, or whether that means donating samples or filling out surveys or donating money or even, helping to spread a little bit of awareness, every little bit of that counts. And if Malaysians don't do it for Malaysians, nobody else will.
Yes, correct, correct. Like you said, the Aura clinical trial was very much an Asian-based study, clinical trials, we get great results. And it showed like this particular thing works best for Asian women. And if we don't support our own research, then who else is going to be, right?
Yeah.
At the end of the day, all donations that are channeled towards Cancer Research Malaysia is used to do impactful research on Asian cancers. Yeah. So thank you, Dr. Jia Wern. Is there anything else that you would like to share with the public today?
Yeah, I think that's it. Yeah, thank you
Thank
for
you.
the
Thanks.
ability to talk a bit about my research.
That's great. That's great. Thanks, Dr. Jia Wern. I would move on a bit and speak about Cancer Research Malaysia's fundraising effort. As you know, Cancer Research Malaysia is a non-profit cancer research organization, and we are doing research on niche Asian cancers, and we are here so that no Asians are left behind in the fight against cancer. Okay, so how can you contribute to us? How can you contribute to the research Dr. Jia Wern is doing and the rest of the team is doing? So there are different ways. You can volunteer with us, you can donate to us, or you can actually join our fundraising events. So here are some information on upcoming fundraising events. Okay, so we have the Terry Fox Run happening at IOI City Mall, Putrajaya on the 28th of September. All proceeds will go towards cancer research, will go to Cancer Research Malaysia so that we can continue doing impactful research on in Asian cancers. Okay, these are some of the things you get. You get the drive-in t-shirt. On the event day, you get a goodie bag, and you also have an option to add on limited edition Terry Fox cap this year. Okay, this is a 5 km friendly run. We also have another run happening, a charity run happening, Cancer Research Malaysia's Race Against Cancer run that is happening in Eon Mall in Milai. It's on the 26th of September, 26th of October from 7 a.m. to 10:30 a.m. Okay. So if you would like to take a scan of the QR code, I'm putting it up here again. Okay, so I know there will be a lot of questions in the webinar e-certificate. So please check your email inbox. One day after today's webinar, you will receive a feedback form from us. Fill out your details and attach a proof of a donation accordingly. Minimum RM1 donation for the webinar e-certificate. E-certificate will be sent to you within 30 days. If you have got any inquiries, please drop us an email to the decoms@cancerresearch.my. Right. And I am going to open up. This. Okay, so there are a few questions. I'm going to open up the floor to a 5 minutes question and answer session. Okay, we have a few questions. Dr. Jia Wern, in your opinion, how much of a percentage or weightage of genomic can represent in a human digital twin in treatment plan selection or optimization?
Yeah, that's a very interesting question. So just for people who don't know, digital twins are a kind of like an upcoming concept in genomics where we try and represent as much human kind of like how the human body works in a digital space, right? So you can what we call model the function of a human body using computers basically, and we use this to make treatment decisions. So I think that right now it's still very experimental and early to it's there's no digital twins that are currently used in the clinic, but there's a lot of very exciting research, right? So I think that we'll get there eventually. At the moment, it's probably, I don't know, maybe 20% or 30% of what's going on in your body can be represented, but this will continue to increase over time, right? As computers get more powerful, as our models get better. So yeah, that's kind of my ballpark guesstimate at the moment is, 20-30%, but very quickly this will probably go up very fast. Yeah.
Interesting. Okay, thank you, Dr. Jia Wern. Next question. Where can patients have the treatment for this cancer treatment? I think she's asking about the AURA study. It's actually a clinical trial, and the clinical trial has closed, right?
It has closed, but we do have other clinical trials that are open. So to access clinical trials, this is a conversation that you need to have with your oncologist. Basically, if you are looking to start new therapies, this is always something that you could consult a doctor with. And for us, we collaborate a lot with with local and international physicians and oncologists. So we collaborate, for instance, with doctors in UMMC or NUS. So this would be a conversation you would have with a doctor in the oncology clinic that you're seeing, and if it's suitable, then they will kind of like put you in contact and put you under these kinds of clinical trials for you to access these new types of treatments.
Yeah, so with clinical trials, just to explain further, it's not that you go around looking for the clinical trial. You have to work with your oncologist. Your oncologist will recommend the clinical trials for you.
That's right.
Okay, so that's where we are. The next question, when you say powerful machines, how powerful are they? High performance computing level or lower?
Yeah, so it depends on the specific project and the amount of genetic data that you're processing. If you're just running project that has maybe 10 people or 15 people or 20 people, you can keep them quite small, right? Maybe a server that's not that much more like that not that much more impressive than your PC, right? You can use that already to start doing some genomics research. But traditionally, kind of like the higher end genomics research that we do, we rely on maybe a computer that's maybe about 100 times maybe more powerful than what you would see on in front of you. But again, depending on the specific research, this can increase exponentially. So a lot of the new kind of like digital twin models that are being built, those are extremely powerful supercomputers that are based on cloud computing kind of infrastructures.
Okay, thanks, Dr. Jia Wern. If you got any questions, please drop it in the Q&A box, not in the chat box, so that I can read out your questions. Yeah. The next question, I'm a data scientist. How do I start my career in genomic cancer research?
Yeah, so That's a good question. I think the best way is to really join a lab that is doing that. So your traditional academic route would you be do either a master's or a PhD in basically a lab that's doing research in this space. And you can do that locally, you can do that internationally. But that's probably your best option is just to go up to a professor or maybe somebody who works in this kind of spaces, talk to them, learn kind of like the basic and get a basic understanding of the field, join your lab, do a little bit of research, publish a couple of papers, and then you go from there and progress in the field. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. So, done. Next question. Does Malaysia have its own supercomputer facility, and does Cancer Research Malaysia has its own supercomputer?
Uh, yes, we do have supercomputer facilities, but a lot of these are basically cloud computing based infrastructures now. We don't have a centralized, I think, kind of like university-based high performance cluster. But we do rely a lot on service providers like Amazon or Google or Microsoft that have these very large server farms that we rely on to do a lot of our genomics work. Yeah.
Thank you, Dr. Jawan. The next question, this will be the last question. Since Malaysia has many races, with these biostatistics research and clinical trials data, would it be possible to push or share to global, making global to see Malaysia and its potential to be clinical trial center in the future by MNC or Big Pharma?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I think Malaysia already is actually considered one of the larger clinical trial centers that, especially in our region, right? So Clinical Research Malaysia has done a really excellent job promoting clinical trials. We have a couple of big centers. There's a lot of infrastructure surrounding it and supporting it. So pharma, I think, for a large part, already see Malaysia as a very good place to do clinical trials and clinical trial related research, just because we have the infrastructure, the support system to do these kinds of things. And like the question stated, our population is very, very unique, very interesting. It's very diverse. So a lot of the research that you might want to do in population-specific manners, you can do that in Malaysia, and you can get really interesting results much more easily than you would perhaps in other places in the world that are much more homogeneous. So yeah, Malaysia is a great place to do clinical research. Yeah.
Yes. So we have come to the end of our webinar today. So thank you, Dr. Jawan. Thank you for spending your time with us, sharing your knowledge, sharing your experience when it comes to genomics and bioinformatics and the great work you're doing at Cancer Research Malaysia. All the best to you and your team. Congratulations once again with the oral clinical trial and just explain to us the journey of how important bioinformatics is and with the great results you've actually got from the clinical trials itself. Okay, so thank you everyone and have a good day. Thanks.
Thank you very much.